Warning: the contents of this video might make you become a better RuneScape player. Viewer discretion is advised. I recommend this guide for anyone who may wish to optimize their OSRS experience. Please do not be alarmed by the length of this video. Plugin settings and FAQ are covered relatively quickly and are chaptered in the description. For the purposes of this guide, we'll be in fixed mode. In order to turn on fixed mode, come down here, click the wrench, click the screen, and then make sure you're on fixed. Plugins. If you're unfamiliar with the plugin hub, you click this wrench in the corner. To see if you have a plugin, you type here. To download the plugin, you click here and type here. To look at plugin options, you can either right-click and click Configure or click the cog to the right. Boosts plugin. Pretty much everybody knows about this plugin, but did you know that this is called the info box? You can hold down the Alt key to resize it. Once you get the mouse to the edge of the info box, you'll see a lot of content creators place the info box right here. This is how you do that. This idea applies to many RuneLite plugin displays. You can also right-click while holding Alt to set it to its original position. Stretch mode is heavily recommended. It makes it so that the game fills up the entire screen. It's much easier to see things, especially more minute actions like weapon changes. It's way more relaxed. You don't have to be as close to the screen. Fixed mode hide chat gives a larger field of vision. Some of the best birders in the world also send this. Entity Hider versus RenderSelf. Instead of Entity Hider, I recommend : RenderSelf. I don't like to go in there to change settings all of the time, so I just like to use : RenderSelf. Entity Hider. If you're PKing with a few buddies, you can hide them with this plugin so you don't accidentally spec them out. A lot of coordinated teams use this plugin against people who are solo at the multi-bosses. So in this scenario, I want to hide the friends chat members, so I click hide friends chat members and it will hide them. It's really helpful for seeing enemies and avoiding misclicks. Player outline. If you decide to render yourself or use Entity Hider, you may find that knowing where your play outline is located particularly useful. Pathfinder. Probably heard of tile indicators, but have you heard of Pathfinder? It will show you the pathing you'll take. It's very good if you don't know pathing too well. Tile indicators. I like having them all activated, so highlight destination tile, highlight hover tile, highlight true tile. So true tile will show you where you are actually when you are moving. Hover tile will show you which tile you're going to make it to, and destination tile shows you the correct destination. So hover tiled is like destination tiled after you click. Mouse theory. Seen a few ideas on this topic while researching an optimal configuration. If you have a gaming mouse, you should be able to use a software to adjust the DPI. DPI stands for dots per inch, used to measure the sensitivity of a computer mouse. My sensitivity in the Y direction is slightly higher with respect to the X direction, which is slightly lower. When finding the right DPI for you, your mouse to feel uncontrollably fast or too slow. Click patterns. You often see many experienced people using click patterns similar to this. I think the original idea to this is that you can slightly use the click force to your advantage. It's a good idea to have enhanced pointer precision turned off. It changes the acceleration your mouse moves so it's less accurate. You want consistency to develop better muscle memory. Symmetrical versus asymmetrical mouse cursors. I've seen this idea in a few places, but it's a more rare idea. If you think it'll better visually aid you to have a symmetrical mouse cursor, then there's a nice plugin called the Crosshair Cursor. A reasonable counter idea to this is that the mouse only actually clicks on one pixel, so it shouldn't matter that much. I've personally found selecting menu options in a right click to be more difficult. Enabling zoom while using the scroll wheel for the mouse. Pretty certain this is auto enabled, but if you have a really old account and you're just coming back, it might not be turned on. To turn it on, just navigate to settings, click the screen, and then you can zoom with the scroll wheel. Very important for a lot of intensive gameplay. Unresponsive Cursor. It will tell you if the server is lagging or if it's you. Default option is orange for server and red for your own lag. Recline/relaxed mouse movement. In my opinion, horizontal mouse movement is very relaxed than say diagonal or vertical. With the old configuration, the quick diagonal motion necessary for birding put a lot of tension and strain on my wrist. With my new setup, it feels a lot smoother. I have to worry less about my wrist feeling janked after a few hours of intensive play. Prayer plugin. The prayer plugin is particularly useful to help achieve a more horizontal motion. Purists may advocate against its use. I believe it's the easiest and best way to learn high-level PvP and PvM. The prayers can be easily moved to a more intuitive position than down below. To use the prayer plugin, right-click the prayer book, enable prayer filtering, then click the filters at the bottom. I just have show rapid healing prayers turned on. The others are turned off. Click the filters to see the prayers. Right-click the prayer book again and enable prayer reordering. This allows you to move them around. Say if you wanted ultimate strength over here, you could do that. Disable prayer reordering, and then you are good to go. Quick prayers. If you right-click the prayers, you can set up quick prayers. It's good to always set these up for the occasion. For wilderness in specific, I like range protection prayer, mage buff prayer, or augury and protect item. Managing inventory. For this setup, I recommend having less click items to the right and bottom right of the screen. Notice where my blighted eye sacs are currently. Managing runes in Spellbook. If you right-click the Spellbook, you can change it around so that your spells are on top, conveniently next to your protection prayers, buffs, and gear switches. Make sure that your spells are in a nice, comfortable position before heading out. Spellbook plugin. This feature is new, and I'm really happy it came out. To use this new feature, right-click the Spellbook and enable spell filtering. Then click the filters at the bottom. I have combat spells and show spells you like the runes to cast enabled. Click the filters to see the spellbook. Right-click the spellbook again, then click Enable Spell Reordering. This will allow you to move spells around. Say if you wanted to move ice splits over here, you could do that. Once you've finished, click Disable Spell Reordering, and then you are good to go. Resetting the Spellbook and Prayer plugin. If you decide you don't like the new arrangement or want to go back into the old design, just come into the plugins. We're showing the Spellbook plugin. This idea also works for prayer. Click Reset and right-click the book to disable filtering, and this then gives the original Spellbook key binding using the Runescape settings. So if you click the wrench down here by the logout screen, you're going to click All Settings. You're going to type in key binding. You'll find that I have my F1 set up to my attack style / spec tab. I have F2 set up to my inventory. F3 is my prayers. F4 is my spellbook. F5 is my gear. F6 is my animations or emotions. F7 is my logout screen. All of these are based off of how often I use them and in basic intuition. The next plugin that we're going to talk about is key remapping. I really don't like the F keys on most keyboards because they are typically not in the most relaxed position. If we press Q, that gives us our attack style / spec tab. Press W, it gives us our inventory. If we press E, it gives us our prayer book. If we press R, it gives us our spell book. If I press T, it gives us our worn equipment / gear. If I press Y, it gives us our logout screen. If I press F, it gives us our emotions. Camera. There's a few settings in here I want to mention specifically for PvP. Right click moves camera, right click objects, right click examine, and right click menu blocks camera. Personally, clicking the scroll wheel a lot doesn't do my index finger any favors. So having these camera settings like this makes using the right click to move the camera as a strong, viable alternative. World Hopper. I didn't actually know about this until looking at the settings, but you can go down a world number by pressing and holding Control plus Shift plus left, or go up a world number by pressing and holding Control plus Shift plus right. And then you can change the commands for this. Say if you wanted it to be a function command, F1 to go down a world number or F2 to go up a world number. : hop world command is really helpful. So if I type : hop 302, it will take me to world 302. Rooftops. If you're just chilling and doing something non-intensive, it's kinda nice to have rooftops turned on. For PvP or efficient gameplay, it is not recommended. You can turn it off here. Roof removal plugin. You'll want to make sure this is turned off. It just gets in the way of removing the rooftops in the settings. Bond pouch. You can remove this by typing in store here, then making sure this one is clicked off. Loot keys. Talk to this guy in Ferox Enclave. Pay 1 million GP. I recommend configuring this to what you're doing. If you're mostly killing PVMers, you may want their supplies to go to the key. If you're anti-PKing, you want supplies on the ground. If you're at the wilderness multi-bosses, you may want the most valuable items sent to the ground. Respawn points. Getting to a place quickly after you die either save you a lot of GP or make you a lot of GP. As of right now, Ferox offers the most optimal spawn in terms of its proximity to a bank. So you talk to Ferox, pay 5 million GP, and then you can have your spawn set up at Ferox Enclave. You also want to make sure that NPC indicators is turned on. So I typically like to highlight the outline with a color that's not obtrusive. Hold shift, and then you can tag the banker. Bank tag layout. You're going to want to make sure you're all geared up. Also make sure that your inventory is set up optimally. You come into the bank, click the plus, and then you're going to name it whatever you want. So let's say quick return. Then you're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You're going to right click and enable layout. Then you're going to click this button. You're going to preview auto layout, and then you'll confirm. What this does is it allows you to gear for whatever you want quickly. It's very nice to use to swap between various activities. This is what we do if we regear 1, 2, 3, 4, then equip everything else as quickly as we can. You don't want to be dilly-dallying in here too long, and then your inventory is going to be all nice and set up. It should only take you 30 seconds to regear. Forget our rope top, but I think you get the idea. To completely optimize a good layout, you're going to shift click, and now you could set it to all or as many as you want, but I think 10 is a good number for dangerous areas. So now it's going to withdraw 10 whenever I click bank settings. Click the bank. Click this button, show menu. I have inventory item options turned on, deposit inventory button turned on, deposit one items button turned on. Incinerator is turned on, and we'll explain exactly what that is. Don't click this button if your bank is nice and organized. This is what skillers would use to deposit items quickly. To go back into the bank, click hide menu. Okay, so what the incinerator does is it allows you to delete large stacks of untradeable objects. Say if I wanted to get rid of these locator orbs, drag them down here, put them in the incinerator. It's gonna ask me, are you sure? I don't want to delete them, so I'm gonna exit out. In order to fully optimize your RuneScape experience, I think it's very helpful to have nice tabs set up. In order to set up a tab, just drag an item to the plus up here. Drag additional items to complete the tab. There's two settings in here I want to mention: swap and insert. Swap is really good for beginning your organization. Insert is helpful for fixing a misplaced item. Let's say I accidentally withdrew all Sardamon Brews 3 because I have always set placeholders off. I then exit the bank. My potions are then messed up. I would then come back into the bank. I would then make sure insert is on, drag my brew in, and adjust accordingly, and my potions are fixed. My first tab is stuff I use regularly. My second tab is teleports, runes, and different access points and currencies. My third tab is potions and food. My next tab is niche gear. Then I have a wilderness tab. I have a really nice skilling tab. I haven't touched this lately. Then I have a generalized loot tab. Random clue scroll stuff. This tab is miscellaneous collectibles. This is my FashionScape tab. So you just want to have stuff nice and organized so you can find it quickly. Looting bag. You can open and close the looting bag by left clicking it. If you have the bag open, it will pick up tradable items and place them into the bag. You can prevent this by right clicking the looting bag, then click settings, then click do not put supplies into the bag. So this now, with the looting bag open, will go into the inventory. There's one other setting in here that UIMs use. I wouldn't recommend playing around with it in the wilderness. Configuring a rune pouch. If you have a rune pouch, come into the bank, then click configure rune pouch. We're going to set up a thralls. But to set up a thralls, we'll click the X. We'll put in the cosmics. 0 for no limit. We have the thralls set up. So what this does now is, if I click this button, it'll swap out all of the runes for the thrall spell. If I click this button, load it out for ice barrage.
So I see this concern quite a bit regarding what you would lose on death. In order to check that, come into Worn Equipment, come down here, view items kept on death. These are the different scenarios. Protect item prayer enabled, PK skull active, killed by a player, wilderness beyond level 20. Now this is the big one. You could lose a big item, such as the Avernic Defender, if it isn't locked. The rune pouch is locked right now, so I would keep that. In order to lock an item, use it on Purdue. Make sure you have a Trouver Parchment and the lock fee. Lock Avernic Defender. Now if I come back into Worn Equipment, set up my scenario. My Avernic Defender and my rune pouch is protected, and I'm good to go. Trouver Parchment alert. I don't know how many videos I've seen of a famous OSRS player losing an Infernal Cape or Avernic Defender because they didn't have this plugin. Please don't be like them. Download it, and if you head to the wilderness, you won't be like them. PK Skull Prevention. You're gonna want to make sure this is always on, unless you're aggressively PKing. If you PK aggressively and forget to turn PK Skull Prevention back on, you can find yourself in a very bad situation to get skull tricked and all kinds of things. Uncharged Glory Warning. If I'm at a wilderness boss and opt out of the one-click teleport in the inventory like a royal seed pod to save an inventory space, I will very often forget to bring a charge of glory. Fortunately, this plugin helps with that. Protect item, notify. I used to have a buddy who would lose a set of dragon claws every few weeks in RS2. Back then everything was a bit more janky, so it was a little more understandable. Personally, I always have protect item on in the wilderness and believe everyone should always have it on. If you're looking to conserve prayer points and don't want to lose a +1, this plugin is for you. Ring of Recoil Reminder / Pneck Reminder. These two cheap items are very powerful in PvP. But surviving is of high importance while also minimizing risk. I highly recommend these two plugins. The Ring of Recoil Reminder is also good for risk fighting and BHPKing. Weapon charges. This one is really helpful for the wilderness weapons. This way you always know you have enough ether and you also know you're not risking too much. Ecumenical Key Tracker. This is just a quick mention. If you go into the wilderness for ecumenical keys, you can track how many you have. Object markers. If you have it turned on, you can hold shift, right click an object you want to mark. Mark, object. I like having the click box checked off. So in the exit caves, for example, I have all of the exits marked. Found items. I think it's a very good practice to highlight supplies. Drop a bunch of common supplies on the ground. Hold the Alt key and click the plus if you want to highlight them. Line of sight. Never use this one. Very powerful for escapes, freezing huggers, hugging objects, and attacking. It's also helpful for accomplishing farcasts. I don't like the way it looks, but if it gives you an advantage, send it. Wilderness lines. Very helpful for escaping and knowing how dangerous your surrounding environment is. Runewatch and FashionScape. These plugins add options to the right click. Clicking walk here for a DD is more janky. Turn it off if it gets in the way. It gets in the way for me personally. The High Score plugin. I forgot about this one, haven't used it in a while. This is a common one that has a feature to right click and look up the player's high scores. I really love this feature, but it feels like it gets in the way. It feels like it gets in the way for you just click off player option. Anti-drag. Just makes it so that you're less likely to drag items. I have mine drag delay set to 12. I think it's the best for me after some light experimenting. PvP Performance Tracker. I downloaded it for this video. From experimenting with it, I suggest a nice 10 in max rendered fights. So being high in the 200s brought me to a crawl. The most powerful thing about the PvP Performance Tracker is that you can see the areas that you need to improve upon. I really wish I downloaded it sooner. With this plugin, I've been able to better understand my own weaknesses. I found out, for example, among the better people, I don't get as many attacks off. GPU. This makes the game way more responsive. There's a few things you can change around, but for me, I turned up draw distance and unlocked FPS. Unlocking the FPS is the most important one. The Last Man Standing plugin. This plugin is really helpful for highlighting the chests once you get a key. Player indicators. Very important plugin for PvP. It better shows you what's happening on the minimap. Minimap plugin. You may want to double check that this is turned on. For me it was. You check the zoom feature, and it allows zoom on the minimap. Click Confirm. To use this plugin, you'll need to make sure you have game sounds on. It will add an additional audible notifier to tell you that a click was successful. Consumable Cooldowns. It's very powerful. It will help you get out of the mindset of spam click food, potions, or brews when you should be switching prayers, changing gear, or getting an attack off. Sometimes I still panic and will spam click brews and food when I should be switching prayers. Coming one with the ticks. This is for people who are considerably advanced but want to take their PvP game to the next level and charter into the last upper percentile of OSRS PvP. These plugins would be helpful if you're beginning, but honestly for a good while into your progression, tick perfect play isn't as important. One of the last hurdles is playing perfectly with as many ticks as possible. Getting the muscle memory of prayers, weapons, switches, and eating and applying that to as many scenarios as possible is what you want to do. Anyways, plugins. Visual ticks, metronome, visual metronome, metronome, info box, histogram. This is what it looks like if you have them all turned on. We'll freeze here for a moment. Histogram in tandem with the metronome and tick plugins are very powerful. So if you download those plugins, you can find them again by typing in metronome and tick and histogram. Frequently asked questions. So for this section, I went to a few Reddit threads and YouTube videos to find questions that people typically had. How long did it take? I'm going to say the average game for me personally was around 8 to 12 minutes. So if we take the number 7912, multiply it by 8, divide by 60, and then divide by 24, we get the days for the lower approximation, which is 43.95 days. We do the same thing for 12 minutes and we get 65 days. It took years and years of real time. How bad's the botting situation? Depends on the time of day and world. They take over the Australian world during the UK Australian rota. The UK world is pretty dead aside from peak hours. The US world often has Megatron bots. Type of bots you have to one tick to kill. We counted the amount of bots that were encountered in the final round. I will say, without the bots though, I think it would have taken us around 200 days in gameplay time. I do wish Jagex would clean up the bots, but more about that later. Best ways to spend points. Depends on your priority. I found it worthwhile and rewarding to greenlog the collection log. So I did that, but then I typically opened up Microsoft Edge to go to Bing.com and Bing search the LMS shop. This brings up the wiki to then find the item with the best GP point ratio. Was 1K always the goal? The goal is to be one of the best in the world. I'm still quite a ways away. And did you ever feel like you'd give up on it? Really felt like I despised the place in the 800 to 900 range. I just wanted it over at that point. Played quite a bit more, found a new love after hitting my goal. How much better of a PK do you think you are now versus when you first started? When I first started LMS, I thought 1 in 50 wins was good because that's what I had, and it slowly went out from there. For my last 95 wins, we could see that my win rate was 95 divided by 7912. Subtracted by 7571, which equals 27.86%. That was mostly in US worlds during peak times. How mandatory would you say that using the fixed small old display is for PvP? These clips will show you that I typically used resizable mode. All of the best people use fixed, and I am not one of the best in the world and I don't use fixed. What ping do I sit on? For the LMS rota, US worlds Eastern is 60 ping, UK worlds is 120-ish, Australian worlds are 200 to 250. Any tips on not planking to bolt raggers who spam LOL? For these guys, all you're going to want to do is get them frozen and then find the far cast tile. It really pisses them off and sometimes they'll run away. This guy says, "You rat." What would you say is the most essential thing to learn to earn more kills in LMS? The more one-tick ice barrages you can do, the better off you'll be against mid-tier to strong opponents. Doing mostly two-tick ice barrages are fine. Just make sure you're at least able to one-tick the crossbow or one-tick the whip. This is a one-tick ice barrage and this is a two-tick. A one-tick ice barrage is when the robes and the barrage spell are all done in one tick. A two-tick ice barrage is when the robes are put on, then the barrage is cast. Being able to do a two-tick and change your pairs in between attacks will put you above average.
Eventually, you'll be able to chain different combinations together to become more unpredictable. How do you handle the Megatron bots? A lot of people say these bots are easy, but they are difficult to beat regularly. This footage took a long time to get, and it's also the first time I've beaten one without it glitching out. It's programmed to always attack off prayer. It will interrupt an attack to change styles if you're praying correctly. This can be taken advantage of. It's going to always protect from mage with a staff equipped, so you can one-tick to the crossbow and bolt it down easily enough. They're very fun to face off against. Describe how you got the LMS score at your rank. It took me a lot longer to learn PvP than other people, and I still have a lot to learn. I've seen a lot of people get it around 13k or sub 20k, but I went all the way to 24k. What kind of updates do I want to see? I wish there were a few more maps. I think 5 would be a good number. I really don't like the Wild Bear Rock map. Big fan of the Desert Island map. I'd like to see an ELO system at LMS and better matchmaking for newer people and mid-tier PvPers. Naturally, they wouldn't get shot points if they have better matchmaking turned on, or it could be greatly reduced, something similar to what they would get now. They may need an entirely separate system for this if the servers or the engine can't handle it. But it would be great to see AI LO bots. Like the AI LO bots you see at chess.com, or a bot you'd see a cheater use. These AI LO bots would help fill the void of not seeing enough mid-tier to new PvPers around. The biggest problem with learning PvP is that you get overwhelmed against strong opponents. This would help with that and potentially foster a better learning environment in PvP. I'd like to see them clean out all of the bots without making things more difficult for people who want to grind the 1k win cape or grind LMS. And hopefully consider adding better rewards for people who want to get better. How much money did I make? Short answer is definitely over 1 billion GP. Probably around 1.2 bill. If we take the 8 to 12 minute average per game, I think that's a very reasonable estimate. Let me know if you think otherwise. You can find the approximate hours played using the 8 to 12 minutes. We can use the wiki's estimate of 25 points. All in all, I'd say I definitely averaged 30 to 35 points an hour. Maybe more, but not by much. I say that because 1 in 8 wins overall isn't that great, but it's nothing to scoff at either. When I was most active, GP point ratio sat around 35 to 40k. Take 7912, multiply by 8. Divide by 60 to get the hours, multiply by 30 points an hour, then multiply by 35k, which is 1.107 bill. We use the higher approximation numbers to get 2.215 bill. I really don't know. Could have made around 2 bill, but it can't be any more than 1.5. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I will attempt to answer very promptly. There's a fair chunk of time left. The rest of this video covers the last 100 wins that we managed to record. As mentioned previously, we counted the bots that made it to the final round, counted all losses that were recorded and wins. I did manage to record me beating rank 1, but they were really good compared to me at the time. We'll start off with that. This counter took a long time to do. I'm pretty sure it's accurate. The first number is actual wins were on, the second is bots that made it to the final round, the third is a death. We don't have all the deaths in this video, unfortunately. Somehow wasn't recording or lost them. Sadly enough, we did miss around 20 wins as well. For anyone who decides to stick around, you'll note that we changed their prayers around midway and had to relearn that. It was worth it though. We'll just have my favorite so far OSRS soundtracks playing until the end. They will be chaptered and named. I just want to say as well, I am not proud of my play. I play really badly in a lot of the clips. I think I've hit another growth spurt sometime in the 1100 win range. desired a brilliancy for a long time, something that shines, captivates, and inspires. I feel so close to one, and so far away. Did you enjoy the guide, my friend? You've probably heard, change your thinking when faced with an insurmountable problem in life by people who think they're giving good advice. Oh, just change my thinking. How and why? That advice often rubs me the wrong way, as most cliched advice does. You don't have to change your thinking, or even do anything. You need a good ritual. I'll share with you one of mine because I have a doubtful mind. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. I say that several times aloud and then face what I don't want to face. Deal with problems I don't want to deal with. The ritual is of the spirit and spiritual. The most important thing is, I don't have to change my thinking. I wasn't taught how ritual grounds work or how they were chosen, but I think a ritual can be enhanced by the ground for certain locations and for certain reasons. Time seems to be relevant too. You should consider making your own rituals, and of course, we'll have to make our own together, but another time. For now, let's enjoy the scenery and the fire.